In this first sketch, we're going to talk about why we should be making disciples in our ministries. Here's the thing: disciple making is supposed to be normal in the church. So why isn't anyone doing it, right? I mean, think about it in your own world. We all talk about it, we all preach about making disciples, but if we really look at the facts, is anyone actually out there making disciples? So in this first sketch, we're going to just sort of take a look at three passages from the Gospel of Matthew. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 4, where Jesus first sort of starts out his ministry. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 9, kind of in the middle of his ministry, and then Matthew 28 at the end of his ministry. First, Matthew 4. Jesus goes out and he approaches fishermen. And it's interesting what he says here. He said, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." Have you ever thought about why he chose these guys? Why didn't he go to the Pharisees? I think that one of the reasons is because he knew that the Pharisees already had in their mind what their job was. But fishermen, not Pharisees, were the ones that Jesus picked, because Jesus wanted to make them fishers of men. Jesus wanted them to go out and not just preach sermons, but he wanted them to go out and actually help people. So that leads to Matthew chapter 9. And this is Jesus. He's going out through all the cities and villages with his disciples. And notice that he's teaching and proclaiming the gospel. What's interesting to me is verse 36. It says that when he saw the crowds that he'd been preaching to, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Now, most of us know that Jesus is the great shepherd, but it's interesting that he recognized that his sermons didn't really shepherd these people, right? He was preaching to crowds, and that's good. That was part of his role. We're not saying that teaching and proclaiming the gospel is a bad thing. It's a very good thing. Jesus recognized that was part of what he had to do. But yet when he looked strategically at what was happening, he recognized that all of these crowds, all of these people, thousands of people, didn't actually have individual shepherds. They didn't actually have anyone that would sort of help them apply what he was teaching, help them process what he was teaching, help them to really sort of internalize the gospel. You see, Jesus understood this truth. People need shepherds, not just preachers, right? And yet so many of our ministries are built on preaching in the pulpit. And again, those aren't bad things. But what people need in our ministries is they need people to walk alongside them and disciple them, right? This is what people need, and this is what Jesus called us to in the first place. And then this finally leads to Matthew 28. We all know this passage. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. This is what Jesus told his disciples. Notice he didn't say go out there and just preach to people, preach great sermons. He said go make disciples. And this is what we think we're missing in most of our churches and ministries. Our ministries are not set up to make disciple makers. Our ministries are mainly set up just to preach sermons. But here's the truth. We are supposed to make disciples, and Jesus is the one who's supposed to build the church. Sometimes we get this mixed up and we try to grow and build our ministries, and we don't actually do the basic thing that we're all supposed to be doing. We're all supposed to be making disciples. In fact, I would like to encourage you to think of it like this for the next couple of videos. We're supposed to be making disciple makers in our ministries. And when we create ministries that are all about making disciple makers who know how to go into the world, like Jesus sent his disciples into the world, and actually help people pursue God, actually shepherd people, what'll happen when we get our job right, when we make disciples, Jesus will build the church, and it'll be a healthy church and a growing church. Now, this is what our tools at pursuegod.org are all about. So you can check out more about how to disciple using our tools at our mentor page. But continue in this series because this is just the why. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about what exactly is a disciple.